For this list, we are going to look at 11 badge engineered versions of sports cars or performance cars, whichever term you decide to use. These are going to be like sporty cars, whether they're coupes, sedans, or cars that look sporty, just cars like that. So these will include actual sports cars, pony cars, or personal luxury coupes that were quick and had quite a bit of power. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So when it comes to Pontiac fans and just muscle car enthusiasts in general, the name GTO is legendary. So when General Motors was talking about bringing it back for the mid-2000s, people had every reason to be excited. But there was a catch. The new GTO that was coming out would not be an all-American muscle car this time around. As a way of keeping cost and development time at a minimum, General Motors decided to rebadge and repackage the Australian-built Holden Monaro. The Monaro was the closest car that already existed to the spirit of a classic 1960s muscle car. It was crude, low, and wide, but it stayed true to the basic muscle car formula of being two-door, rear-wheel drive with a V8, not to mention being powerful right out of the box. People did end up liking this car, and it was a nice throwback to an old name. And it's still a popular car today. That's especially the case among tuners, who found it very easy to tune their V8 engines up to huge power figures. And this car is also a bargain, for now that is. For a car that was designed in the mid-1980s and went on sale in the early 90s, the Dodge Stealth looks phenomenal. Whenever I do see one of these on the road, I can't help but stare. As you guys know, the Dodge Stealth was nothing but a rebadged version of the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. You could get a 3000 GT during the same time you could get a Dodge Stealth, and both cars had the same engine options. This included the 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6 and all-wheel drive running gear of the 3000 GT VR4, which Dodge ended up calling the Stealth RT Twin Turbo. Whenever you bought the 3000 GT or the Dodge Stealth, you were going to get a great 90s sports car regardless. And of course, they still look quite stunning today. This car is another example of a badge engineered job. The Mitsubishi Starion was a neat looking 80s Japanese sports coupe. That's no different with the Conquest. The Conquest was available with a 2.6-liter turbocharged inline-4, which was the most powerful engine you could get in the Mitsubishi Starion. This produced 145 horsepower in the early narrow-body versions, rising to 188 horsepower for the TSI version of the later wide-body cars. Next up, we have the Mercury Capri. Nope, not this one. This one. The Australian-built front-wheel drive convertible Capri was an interesting concept, but we'll talk about that one another time. As most of you are aware, the Mercury brand was nothing more than a classier and upmarket product compared to what you could get from Ford dealerships. There were Mercury versions of all sorts of Ford models, and at one point this even included the Mustang. After the Ford Capri-based Mercury Capri went out of production, the Mercury Capri name found itself on a rebadged version of the Fox body Mustang. The second generation Mercury Capri had all the same engine and transmission options as the Fox body Mustang. This included the 2.3-liter engine that wheezed out 88 horsepower, as well as the famed 200 horsepower 5-liter pushrod V8. The people over at Ford thought it was a good idea to lump all of this together and market it as being a more upmarket vehicle. But today, these are definitely a rare sight. Like the Dodge Stealth and Chrysler Conquest mentioned earlier, the Eagle Talon is another result of a Mitsubishi model being rebadged into a more American product. The Eagle Talon was a great car, but as most of you probably know, it was nothing but a Mitsubishi Eclipse with different cosmetics. The Talon had the same engine choices as the Eclipse, including the 2-liter turbocharged inline-4, and you could get this particular engine in the top-tier TSI model. The TSIs were great for their time, providing great performance with an amazing design for a bargain price. The Saturn Sky was awesome, not because it was the fastest car to ever wear a Saturn badge, but because it offered value and a high fun factor wrapped in a wild package from an otherwise tame brand. The Saturn Sky shared its sheet metal with this car that you see on the screen, which was sold in mainland Europe. And to take it a step further, it also shared its sheet metal with the G2X Roadster. Pontiac also had its own Kappa car, the Solstice, built on the Kappa platform, just like the Saturn Sky. You could choose between two different engines. The first was a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated inline-4 that also came in the Pontiac Solstice. The second was a 2-liter turbocharged 4-banger. And if you wanted the 2-liter engine, you had to go with the top trim Redline. The Redline was actually a fast car for its market segment, able to achieve an average 0 to 60 time of 5.2 seconds. However, there were aftermarket enhancements that installed LS engines in these, ultimately giving these tiny cars upwards of 500 horsepower and a scary low 3-second 0 to 60 run. When it comes to cars that are badge engineered twins, there aren't that many that are as well known or well loved as the Toyota GT86, formerly known as the FRS in North America, and the Subaru BRZ. The BRZ is sometimes overlooked compared to its Toyota sibling, but that doesn't mean that it isn't as good. It's almost as identical to the GT86, with the only real difference being that it has a Subaru badge and a slightly different suspension setup. If the GT86 got any updates, the BRZ would get them too. In the years since it went on sale, the BRZ has become synonymous with great performance and tunability for a budget price. It's almost like a modern day 240SX. All of that makes it a worthy contender for being one of the greatest badge engineered sports cars of all time. Ah yes, we have another entry from General Motors' Excitement division. I give General Motors credit for unleashing a tire shredding rear-wheel drive sedan with over 400 horsepower, which was a crazy amount of power back when the sedan first went on sale. But anyway, the story of the G8 is similar to the story of the GTO that we discussed earlier. This sedan was exported from Australia to the United States, where it was sold by Pontiac. The G8 was nothing but a rebadged Holden Commodore and was released for the 2008 model year in the United States. This came at a time when Pontiac was desperately trying to recapture their exciting image. The G8 came with several engine choices, but the one that really got everybody talking was the GXP, with its LS3 cranking out 415 horsepower. After the Pontiac brand was suspended, General Motors announced the Chevy SS would fill in for the G8. The car you see on the screen is part of the Buick Regal lineup. The Buick Grand National was only made from 1982 to 1987, with no Grand National being made for 1983. It started off life with a 4.1-liter naturally aspirated V6 that wasn't all that powerful, but that soon gave way to a 3.8-liter turbocharged V6 that ended up producing over 240 horsepower by 1987. This made the Grand National quick and a bit of a sleeper even if it did not have a V8. Being part of the Regal lineup, the Buick Grand National is actually a member of a whole bunch of badge engineered cars. It is based on the General Motors G-body platform, meaning that it shares almost all of its components with other GM models of similar rank. The Chevy Monte Carlo and Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme from around that time even have the same body as the Buick Regal, but that's not a bad thing. The Buick Grand National probably is one of the best badge engineered cars ever made. We discussed quite a few cars with lots of performance and big V8s, but the one you see on the screen here is a little different. Built by Mazda, the Autozam AZ-1 only has a 0.6-liter engine, and it manages to squeeze out just over 60 horsepower. This car is quite tiny and, as you see, quite quirky too. While it doesn't have a lot of power, it's very small and very light, so the little bit of power that it does have goes a long way. And unless you're a car guy, a lot of people don't know that the AZ-1 is actually the product of badge engineering. The engine came from Suzuki, and the original design was based on a Suzuki design. And Suzuki even made their own version of it. The Suzuki version is way more rare than the AZ-1, so if you just so happen to see a Suzuki version, consider yourself lucky. And oh yeah, let's not forget about the F-body twins. Now, these both went on sale in 1992 for the 1993 model year. By 1998, they both got a significant refresh. The Firebird kept its pop-up headlights, but they looked way cooler now. Now, these cars were the definition of bang for your buck. Even the 3800 engine was only slightly down from what a contemporary SN95 Mustang GT was making. And in their top spec, these two cars were beating SN95 Mustangs, as well as the New Edge. And to be quite frank, they were even quite close to the performance of a C5 Corvette. So it took the Terminator Cobra with 390 horsepower to restore balance. Now, the Mazda MX-6 and the Ford Probe were originally intended for this list, since they are very similar mechanically. But those two cars have completely different design languages, and I mean, one just looks completely different from the other, unlike every other car on this list. So those cars did not make the list, but maybe they'll make a different list. Alright, so that's it for this list. Let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you on the next one.